Hello everyone. Now in today's lecture we will talk about the respiratory system in human, that is man. In human beings many organs takes part in the process of respiration. So we call it organ or we call them organ of respiratory system. Okay. So the main organ of respiratory system, human respiratory system are nose. Okay, that is nasal cavity. You can also say nose. Okay, it consists of nasal passage is present here. Okay, nose and nasal cavity. This is the nose partner and this is the nasal cavity, that is nasal passage. Okay, nostrils are present here, trachea, pharynx, okay, and the bronchi, or you called it bronchus, clear, lungs and diaphragm. Okay, so these are the different organs of human respiratory system. Okay, so human respiratory system, what you noticed here, that human respiratory system, it begins from the nose. Okay, so let's talk about the nose and the nasal passage. Nasal passage means to say nasal cavity. Okay, nasal passage, let's talk about this first of all, then we will move forward. Okay, now in case of human beings, our nose has two passage. Okay, two holes are present in our nose now. So these two holes are known as nostrils. Okay, these are two holes in nose, these are known as nostrils. Okay, and it consists of a passage. There is a passage is present in the nose behind the nostril. Okay, so this passage is known as beta nasal passage. Okay, so the air for respiration is drawn into our body through the nostrils. So what are the function of nostril? It draw the air, draw or take the air into our nasal passage. Okay, so this is the function, nasal passage. Is it clear? Okay, present in the nose. This air is then goes into the nasal passage. Okay, so the nasal passage is separated from the mouth and the from mouth cavity by a hard palate. Okay, so I will tell you about the palate part also. I will tell you about this, but before going to the palate, let me talk about the nasal cavity. Okay, now anterior most of each nasal cavity has a septum here. Okay, has a swollen part actually here. This swollen part is known as the vestibule. These two nostrils are separated by a structure which is known as nasal septum. Okay beta, clear? Now let's talk about, so here I am going to draw a structure. This is your nasal cavity and below is your buccal cavity. Okay beta, and here pharynx is present and this is known as your windpipe. Okay, sorry, food pipe, and here is your windpipe present. Clear? Okay, so I will explain it. Now the nasal cavity, that is nasal passage, is separated by the oral cavity with the help of a hard plate like structure, and this plate like structure is known as palate. About palate, I have already told you in the lecture of digestion. Okay, that palate is the hard and soft part. Anterior part is a soft hard, while the posterior part is soft. Okay, that separate the nasal cavity to the oral cavity. Okay, so when you breathe in, here two nostrils are present. These are the nostrils. Okay, through which the air enters into your nasal cavity, then air goes toward the pharynx region. This is the another part which is known as the pharynx region. Okay, so let me highlight all these parts related to your respiratory system. Okay, first of all, this was the nasal passage, that is nasal cavity, nostrils. Okay, these are the different parts, and next one is the pharynx is another part of your respiratory system. Okay, actually what you observe in the palate, that it is the opening. Okay, in the pharynx region, two tubes, there is an opening of two tubes. Okay, and these two tubes are, let me write in there. Okay, these two tubes are, first one is known as the esophagus, which is the food pipe. Okay, and this one is known as the windpipe, that is trachea, windpipe. Okay, so both of these open into the pharynx. Okay, and their openings are known as, yes, their openings are known as this opening. The opening of esophagus is known as gullet. while the opening of trachea, this is known as glottis. Okay, and do you know that this glottis is covered with a flap like structure which is known as epiglottis? Is it clear to everyone, beta? Okay, so in our body, in our neck region, please understand it that in our neck region, two pipes are present. Two pipe like structure is present. One is known as food pipe. Another one is known as windpipe. Okay, and both of these pipe open into a pharynx region. Okay, so basically pharynx is the place which it is a common path for the air and the food. Let me explain you how this is a common path. Look at the diagram. Through the nose, through the nasal cavity, air enters here, and this air goes into the trachea. Clear now? Okay, so this is air, and through the buccal cavity food enters into your mouth. Okay, so food enter here, and this food goes into the esophagus. Okay, so is it the passage, is it provide the passage for the movement of air as well as food? Yes. So write down about the pharynx that it is a common path for air and food both. Clear to everyone? Any doubt? Okay, done now? Done. Okay, now write about the glottis and epiglottis. Let me write down some point regarding this also. Okay, beta, I am going to write it there. That opening of trachea, it is guarded by epiglottis. Okay, epiglottis. Okay, and can you tell me opening of trachea, this is known as glottis, which is guarded by epiglottis. Epiglottis is a flap like structure, somewhere like that. This is epiglottis and here is the glottis. Okay, and here is the trachea. While the opening of esophagus, and what is known as esophagus opening? Yes, this is known as gullet. Opening of esophagus is known as gullet. Clear to everyone? Okay. Now, after this, what is the next part of your respiratory system? Okay. So, after this, beta, here we have to focus only the windpipe. Not, there is no need of the food pipe, because here we are discussing about the respiratory system. Okay. And in respiratory system, there is a movement of air occur. Na? So, let's talk about here. Okay. Here. This is the larynx part, actually, not trachea. This part is the trachea. Actually, let me write down. The upper part, the part above the trachea is known as the larynx. Okay, so you can also write down here. This is the opening actually, but here you have to write down that this is the, okay, so this is the larynx part. Larynx, okay, and here is the trachea part. Below the larynx, trachea is situated. Okay, so if you want to write it there also, that the opening of larynx. Okay, yes, opening of larynx. Okay, this is the opening of larynx, which is known as the epiglottis. But if I am talking about the windpipe, trachea is actually known as the windpipe. Okay, not larynx. Larynx is known as the voice box. Okay, larynx is known as the voice box. Okay, and trachea is known as the windpipe. Okay, so what is next part of respiratory system? It is larynx. Okay, clear? Next part, the first part is the nasal nose, second part is the nasal passage, third part is the pharynx, and fourth part is your larynx region. Okay, so let's talk about larynx. Write down the heading larynx. So let me erase all these things. Again I'm going to write it there. Okay. So write down heading larynx. Okay. Next heading is the larynx. Let me write it from another color. Larynx. Beta, larynx is no. This is the third part. Okay, this is third part. First part was the nose, second part is the pharynx, and here is the third part, which is also known as voice box. Okay, Okay, it is actually slightly swollen part of trachea or windpipe. Okay, okay, and actually it is responsible for producing voice in our body. Okay, and it is a cartilaginous box made up of cartilage. Many cartilage are present here. Clear? Okay, so how it looks like? It looks like somewhat that. So this is the trachea, and this part is known as the larynx part. Okay, and this part is known as trachea part. So this is the swollen part of trachea or windpipe. It is more prominent in man, okay, in some cases, okay, compared to the woman, and is known as the Adam's apple. Okay, clear? Here prominent part is present, okay, which is known as Adam's apple. Okay, and do you know that how sound is produced, actually how voice is produced? Just sound. Dekho, there's two things. First one is known as voice or sound, so you can also call it sound, and another thing is known as the speech, the words pronunciation. So how you will speak? You are able to speak with the help of your tongue, when tongue touches different part of your buccal cavity. But how sound is produced? Yes, how sound is produced? Can you see a little baby of just only 1 month, 2 month, 8 month? The baby is unable to speak. Okay, he or she is unable to speak, but he don't know how to pronounce any word. Okay, but he is able to produce the sound. Okay, so sound is coming from the larynx, and speak, you are able to speak with the help of your tongue. When tongue touches different part of your buccal cavity, then a word is produced. Okay, clear to everyone? Okay, so larynx having how the sound is produced. Actually it having a pair of vocal cord is present in this part. In this part, here I'm going to make this part here. Actually there is a pair of yes, vocal cords are present. Okay, one vocal cord and two vocal cords are present here. Okay, so two pair of vocal cord is present here. Let me write that there, just a second. Two pair of vocal cords are present. First one is known as true vocal cord. Okay, and second is known as false vocal cord. Clear? What do you mean by the true vocal cord? One pair. These are present the pair na beta. Actually, vibration, of when the vibration occur, when you breathe in. When you breathe in, then airs enter into your larynx, air into your nasal cavity. Then it goes toward the pharynx. Then via pharynx it enter into the larynx part. Okay. So when when the air vibrate this when you inhale the air, then the vibration of true vocal cord produces sound during the expiration. Okay, so their vibration of this true vocal cord, it produces sound. It produces a type of sound during expiration, not inspiration. Keep this in your mind. Okay, during a time of expiration. Okay, exhalation. Okay, now what about the false vocal cord? It produces no sound. No sound is produced by false vocal cord. Now, what are the role of false vocal cord? Is just provide moisture. Okay, it provide moisture to the true vocal cord. Okay, and do you know that there is a space present in between two vocal cord? This space is known as rhima glottis. Yes, so now write down this space between two vocal cord. Okay, this space is known as rhima glottis. Okay, and keep one more thing in your mind, that vocal cord of female is thinner and is smaller. Okay, in comparison to vocal cord of male. In male, the vocal cord is thicker and longer. Okay, so during expiration, when air goes outside, it vibrates the true vocal cord, which produces sound. Okay, so that's why our larynx part, that is third part of our respiratory system, is completed. Now move toward the fourth part of our respiratory system, which is known as trachea. Okay, now write down better trachea heading. Fourth part is the trachea. This is another part of our respiratory system. Hanji. So trachea is known as windpipe. You have to learn the common names also, such like the larynx. Larynx is known as the sound box, है ना? Trachea is known as windpipe. ठीक है? So here larynx is present. This is the opening of larynx, which is known as epiglottis. And this epiglottis is guarded by glottis. Actually, glottis prevent the entry of food. When you are eating food na, then the glottis cover the epiglottis so that the food cannot enter into your windpipe region. It goes toward the esophagus. Okay, and after this another part is present which is known as trachea. Here trachea is present. Okay, clear? This part is the trachea. Okay beta, so trachea, it is approximate 10 to 12 centimeter long. Okay, and it is a how it looks like? Yes, tell me. It is a hollow tubular structure, a very hollow tubular structure, tube like structure. Okay, that enters into the thoracic cavity. Do you know what I mean by the thoracic cavity? I told you na, that above diaphragm part in which our lung is present, that region is known as thoracic cavity, and the part below diaphragm where liver, stomach, small intestine and large intestine are present, this region is known as abdomen region. Okay, so it is hollow tubular structure. Bifurcate means to say beta, bifurcate means to say divide into two part. Okay, bifurcate into just a second, let me erase this part and I am going to write something else. Hanji. So write down that it is a hollow tubular structure. It enters in thoracic cavity. Okay, thoracic cavity, and inside the thoracic cavity beta, it divided. It bifurcate, or you can also write divide. Bifurcate into primary bronchi. Okay, divide into primary bronchi. Let me show you here in this diagram. Yes, come toward this diagram. Look at this diagram. Okay, not in this diagram, just a second. Yes, here. Better look at this. This is your pharynx region. Here pharynx is present. This is your larynx region. Okay, this is the larynx. Okay. Now from here trachea is started. Now when the trachea enter into your chest region, that is your thoracic region, na, then it bifurcate into, yes, this somewhat like that. It bifurcate into primary bronchi. Okay, it bifurcate into primary bronchi. Clear? Primary, divide into two primary bronchi, and each primary bronchi enters into their corresponding lungs. Yes, here. Okay, so write down this line also. What's going on? Just a second. Okay, now come toward this. Okay, so it divide into primary bronchi. Is it clear? And enter in the enters here, not here, because here I have to draw a diagram now. Enters in the right and left lungs. Okay, clear? So here it enters into the lungs. This is the primary bronchi, and this primary bronchi, this is the primary bronchi beta. Okay, primary bronchi. Okay, now this enter into the corresponding lungs. Somewhat like that. Clear? Okay, now one more thing, that in this trachea a cartilage structure is present. Yes, this structure is present. Okay, C-shaped structure, C-shaped ring is present, C-shaped cartilaginous ring is present, and this cartilaginous ring is not present only in the trachea, but it is also present in the bronchi, in the primary bronchi. Okay, now this primary bronchi divide into divide into many bronchi. Okay, there is a primary bronchi changes into the secondary bronchi, then it changes into the tertiary and further into the terminal bronchi. This primary bronchi changes into finally the bronchioles. Bronchiole, after being a division, it changes into the bronchiole. Okay, clear? This bronchioles changes into the respiratory duct. Okay, after many division. So all these things happens here inside the lung. All these things happens here. Okay, so primary bronchi, after many division, after many repeated division, changes into bronchiole, and bronchiole, after many repeated division, it changes into the respiratory duct. Okay, now this respiratory duct open into a sac-like structure which is known as the alveolar sac. Okay, this alveolar sac having a large number of millions of alveoli. Okay, beta, here millions of alveoli is present. Is it clear to everyone? Okay, so look at the diagram. Okay, that the bronchi is singular is known as the bronchus, changes into the bronchioles. Bronchial changes into the respiratory duct. Then further it opens into the alveolar sac. Alveolar sac having alveolar sac, actually it is a sac-like structure which is made up of many alveoli. Okay, so this diagram is somewhat like that. Let me draw it. Here I am going to draw only the structure of bronchi. Okay, this is bronchi, primary bronchi. After many repeated division, okay, it changes into the primary bronchioles after many repeated division. Okay, and after many repeated division, this primary bronchiole changes into the, here cartilage is present. Okay, but as we go deeper into the lungs, I mean to say in the bronchiole, there is no cartilage ring structure is present. Okay, now then it forms the respiratory duct. Respiratory duct open into the alveolar duct, somewhat like that. This is alveolar duct, and which finally opens into a sac-like structure which is known as the alveolar sac. Okay, alveolar sac, and this part this is the alveoli. Okay, these are the alveoli which is made up of large number of this sac-like structure, and this is known as the alveoli. Okay, which is the functional unit of lungs. All the function of lungs depend on this, and this is the alveolar duct. Clear? So all these things, where all these things are present, these divisions are occur inside the lung, beta. Okay, all these things are present inside the lung. So lung is somewhat like this, na? Okay, so as we go deeper, the C-shaped hyaline cartilage ring structure goes upset. Okay, as we go deeper. Clear? Okay, due to the decrease in the diameter, na? Okay, all these things open, and keep this in your mind that there are millions of alveoli are present. Okay, millions of alveoli are present. Okay, now here let me tell you one more thing, that yes, that it is surrounded by a membrane. Outside the lung there are membrane is present, and this membrane is known as the pleura membrane. Okay, so there are two membrane. First one is the inner membrane and second is the outer membrane. Okay, so inner membrane is known as visceral pleura, and while the outer membrane is known as the parietal pleura. Okay, so this membrane is the outer pleura, outer layer. Okay, and this is the inner layer. Clear to everyone? So this is the pleura. Pleura is the beta outer. Pleura is the membrane. So lungs is surrounded by a double layer membrane. Is it clear to everyone? Okay, now move forward. Okay, and write one more important point, that alveoli, it is surrounded by, network of blood capillaries. Okay, network of blood capillaries. Did you got my point? Okay, beta, that is pulmonary capillaries. capillaries through which gases exchange occur. Let me explain you whole the process actually. When you inhale air with the help of your nose, it goes toward the pharynx region, then via pharynx it enter into the larynx part, then trachea and then bronchioles, and further it enter into your sac like structure into the alveolar sac. Okay, and here many alveoli are present. Okay, and these alveoli are surrounded by large number of blood capillaries. Okay, so gases exchange occur. So write down here, gases exchange occur between blood capillary, that is pulmonary capillary, okay, and air of alveoli. Clear? Air of alveoli. Clear? So here the gases exchange occur. Is it clear to everyone? Okay, now let's talk about some more important point, beta. Let's talk about breathing. So these all about the structures, and now let's talk about the mechanism. First of all, let's talk about the breathing. What do you mean by the breathing? Breathing, it is a physical process. Keep this in your mind that it is a physical, biological. एक second. Just a second. Another heading again, that is breathing. We are talking about breathing first of all, then we move toward the mechanism of breathing. Okay, so what do you mean with the breathing? What type of process is breathing? It is a physical biological process. Okay, why I am saying physical? Because when you inhale or exhale air from your body, there is a movement occur in your body's organs. Okay, in your movement occur in your body organ. That's why it is a physical process. Okay, in this atmospheric air enters to the lung. Is it now? It enter to the lung. That is what it is known as inspiration. Okay, so during breathing there are two processes occur. First one is the inspiration, inflow of air or entry of fresh air into the lung, it is known as inspiration. Okay, while pulmonary air, I mean to say lung air in scientific language you have to write down pulmonary air, it is expelled out into environment, that is it is known as expiration, or you also called it outflow of air. Okay, foul air is expelled out from your body. Clear? So what are the basic difference between breathing and respiration? Can you tell me, beta? Yes, there are very simple difference, that breathing is the part of respiration. Keep this in your mind that breathing is part of respiration. How breathing is part of respiration? Did you remember the respiration process? Respiration is mean to say combustion of food or the burning of food in the presence of oxygen. Now the question is how this oxygen enters into your body? With the process of breathing. Okay, with the process of breathing. When you breathe in, when you inspire, then air enters into your lung, and with the help of blood capillaries they goes to different part of the body where combustion of food occur. It means to say then respiration process will completed. Okay, so breathing is a part of respiration. Is it clear to everyone? Okay, now let's talk about some structures which surround our lung, that protect our lung. Okay, so here some structures are given. Look at this. These are the ribs, है ना? These are the ribs that present over our lungs. It protect our lung actually. Here is sternum. His sternum and ribs are the bone that protect our lung actually. Okay, so this is our lung. And this lungs is protected by a rib cage like structure. Okay, a cage like structure which is known as the rib cage. Okay, and below this lung there is another structure present which is known as diaphragm. Okay, clear? Is it clear? Okay, so actually contraction and relaxation of these diaphragm and the muscles of your lungs, it responsible for the breathing process. Okay, so let's talk about this ribs. Actually here some cages are present known as the thoracic cage. cage. Thoracic cage is just like a pinjara. It consists of sternum. It consists of ribs. It consists of vertebral column. Vertebral column means to say beta, the bone which is present, the backbone. In simple language, backbone is known as the vertebral column. Okay. Sternum, ribs. Ribs means to say pasli in Hindi. Okay. So all these three together protect our lungs. Okay. By forming rib cage. Clear to everyone? Is it clear to everyone? Okay, beta? Clear. Now, let's talk about the diaphragm actually. What happens with the diaphragm? Okay, so if I'm talking about the diaphragm, look at the shape of diaphragm. Diaphragm is dome shape, na? Dome shape. Okay, but when their muscles contract, if we apply pressure from this side, okay, then they become flat like this. Okay, so contraction of diaphragm cause it flat structure. Okay, cause the flat structure. Clear? While again relaxation of the diaphragm muscles, it go back to their normal structure. Okay, now let's talk about the breathing mechanism. Okay, so when we breathe in, let's talk about in the case of inspiration. What happened in case of inspiration? Okay, beta. Now write down. Just a second. Now write down. In case of inspiration, what happens to the diaphragm? We will discuss here about the diaphragm. Okay, what happens to the diaphragm? Actually, when we breathe in air, the diaphragm and the muscles attached to the ribs contract. Diaphragm and muscles attached to the ribs, it contract. Okay, contract. Why they contract, beta? Actually, it is just like a balloon. When you fill air inside the balloon, then what happened? It is stretched now. It is stretched. It is somewhat like that. Lungs start stretching. How it is start stretching? Due to the contraction in the diaphragm and the muscles attached to the ribs. They contract. Okay, contract, due to which our chest cavity, our thoracic cavity, I mean to say, write down here in the scientific language, in the thoracic cavity, it beta expand. Okay, and this expansion movement of the chest increases the volume inside the chest cavity. Okay, due to the decrease in the pressure. So write down next point, there is an increase in thoracic cavity volume. Okay, why there is an increase in thoracic cavity volume? Let me write down one more things here, that it will cause the contraction of the diaphragm and the muscles attached to the ribs, or the ribs muscle in simple language. It causes the sternum, due to this the sternum and ribs move upward. Yes, it move upward and outward. Is it due to the pressure? Due to pressure, it move upward and outward. Blow a balloon, then you will definitely feel this thing. Okay, that will increase thoracic cavity volume. Okay, that will increase thoracic cavity volume. But what about the pressure? Decrease pressure. Here pressure is decreases in the lungs. Okay, pressure decreases in the lungs as compared to atmospheric pressure. Yes, it is correct. As compared to atmospheric pressure. Okay, so these things happens in case of inspiration. So what you observe, that inspiration is an active process. Why? Because there is a contraction of muscle occur, and when there is a contraction occur, it means to say here energy is utilized. Is it clear to everyone? Okay, clear. Now via blood, this oxygen, first of all, when this oxygen entered into the lung, it goes toward the alveoli, है ना? So it enters into the alveoli via nose, via pharynx, via lung, via trachea. It finally move toward the alveoli, where gases exchange occur between the alveoli and their blood capillaries. Okay, so during this exchange, now lung again will be the full of foul air. Lung will be the foul air. Foul air means to say carbon dioxide. Okay, now it's time for the expel out of this carbon dioxide. Okay, so expelling out of carbon dioxide from the body, it is known as expiration. Okay, this is known as the expiration. Now write down next heading, beta. Just a second. Wait a minute, let me erase all these lines now that yes, these lines, so that, okay, it will now, it become clear. Now let's move toward the expiration. How expiration occur? To be zoom. Expiration. Okay, now what happens during time of expiration? Here we are discussing about the conditions now. Actually we are discussing about the events that occurring during a time of expiration. Okay, so during the time of expiration, now see, the movement of foul air from the lungs to outside is known as expiration, as you know. Okay, so during a time of expiration, what happens? There is a relaxation occur. Yes, write down that there is a relaxation of diaphragm and ribs muscles. Okay, and when there is a relaxation, it means to say everything go back to their normal condition. Okay, due to which there is a decrease in thoracic cavity volume. Okay, so during the time of expiration, lungs move inward and downward. Okay, that will decrease thoracic cavity volume. Decrease thoracic cavity volume. Okay, and it will increases the pressure inside the, where the pressure this time increases? Pressure inside the lungs. Okay, in comparison to the atmospheric pressure. Is it clear to everyone? Okay, so all these movements are brought about by the simple relaxation of muscle that were contracted during the time of respiration. Inspiration. Is it clear to everyone? There is no doubt. Okay. Now let's talk about the rate of breathing. Okay, so mechanism of breathing is completed. Let's talk about the rate of breathing. Here I'm going to write it there. Rate of breathing. Okay, so the process of breathing pumps in oxygen into our body and remove carbon dioxide, as you all know. So breathing occur involuntary. Involuntary means to say on its own. It is not under our control. Okay, but the rate of breathing is controlled by the respiratory system of brain. So write down here the average breathing. Average. This can be framed as a question, beta. Average breathing rate an adult man at rest. Okay, it is about 15 to 18 times per minute, or you can also write down breathing rate, BR. It is 15 to 18 times per minute. Okay, per minute. Clear? This breathing rate increases with increase in physical activity. For example, if we do some physical exercise like sit up exercise or you are running, okay, then that time breathing rate increases. This is because when we do some physical exercise, then our body needs more energy. And to produce more energy through respiration, our body requires more oxygen gases. Okay, so rapid breathing supplies more oxygen to body cells. Okay, for producing more energy during the time of exercise. Is it clear? Okay. So this is all about the respiration, how respiration occur in case of human beings. Okay. Now in the next lecture, now we will talk about the transport, that how this oxygen is transported to different part of our body. Okay, who is responsible for transporting the oxygen to different part of our body? Here blood is responsible, okay, in case of human beings. But what about the in case of plants, how these are moving to different part? Yes, how here oxygens, we will discuss it in the next lecture. Okay, thank you.